Okay, welcome everyone. It is IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective, and the only news program in the world, really, trying to lift our consciousness and look at world events from a higher perspective. Tonight we have a literally burning hot topic, and one that's kind of personal for me because as a younger person and teenager, I fancied myself quite the environmentalist. To the point of judging everyone around me, of course, for not being as environmental as me. And, you know, since that time, since the 90s and until today, the rainforests have been burning and being cut down, the polar ice caps are melting, the coral reefs are being bleached, species are disappearing. So the global ecology is under a lot of strain. And it is kind of a hot topic among the spiritual communities as to what does it really mean? Why is this happening? And are we terrible because, you know, we seem to be the primary cause for all of this? So we thought it was a really good topic. Lots has been happening this year with hurricanes and, you know, everything in the natural world seems to be up in arms. So we do ask the question tonight, is ecological collapse imminent? And is it too late to sort of turn the ship around? So that's where we're going to open tonight. IKYA, there are lots of students wondering, is it too late? Is ecological collapse coming?
You know, people have been predicting the end of time since beginning of time. It's a favorite pastime, you know. Humans are always drawn to those stories. And the reason is primarily because throughout human evolution, you know, predicting the future was really important. Remember, one didn't have science, and survival meant being able to predict what was going to happen. It started with understanding seasons and, you know, where to find food. And then you would have natural phenomena and disasters and, you know, everything you could learn about nature so that you could live a more predictable life and you could control it and thereby survive. It also meant that when humans, you know, invented their gods, it was mainly to help them survive. And someone to be on their side and give them safety and something to believe in. And then individuals who claim to know the future, they would always have a lot of power, right? To predict what was going to happen. And it's just part of human nature at this point. It's been part of every culture, this obsession with predicting what's going to happen, especially if it's bad. Because when you can predict something is bad, you have power, right? You can make people do what you want them to because you are basically installing fear. And fear is just part of the power game. Remember that, you know, when people are selling fear, when they're like fear-mongering people, it could be religion, it can be politics, whatever. It's to gain control. Because people are afraid the solution is control. They don't want necessarily things to get better. The antidote for fear is control. So when you feel that you're afraid of something, it's basically in your mind the experience that you don't have any control. Right? And when you have control, you have no fear. So the environment, remember that when humans started experimenting with control, it was always about nature. So it's the deepest form of power games that humans have ever come up with. And this is why when it comes to the environment, it becomes so intense. Right? It becomes so much of, we're all going to die, you know? Although we're not. Well, we're all going to die. Everybody's going to die. All life dies, right? Whether it's plants or insects or humans or animals, your thoughts die, your emotions die, your stories die. And your interests die, your families die, planets die, stars die, solar systems die. Everything dies at some point, right? But being able to control it is the ultimate power and the ultimate feeling that I'm in control of my own life because I know. And you don't, and because I know, you have to do what I tell you to. So, it's been following human evolution and human culture. And it's not healthy. There are a lot of other things that we could focus on, right? But that existential pain means we don't experience that we have anything to live for. That's basically what existential pain is. When we are happy, right, we want to live. So when we're not, when we experience existential pain, we need something to die for, right? And it's part of that too. You never see happy people selling fear, right? They're never concerned about things because they're more into upliftment. They're more into, healing and joy than, criticizing and attacking and selling fears. And now it's coming, we're all going to die. It comes from this existential pain. So finding something to die for and the willingness to die for it, because it's so important, only happens to people who experience that they have nothing to live for. It comes from that pain. So you also see that with people who want to sacrifice themselves for God. It's because you have no life. When you find a cause that can fill you, it's because you're an empty void. True spiritual work is filling yourself so completely that it overflows. And what happens then? You overflow with joy. You overflow with generosity, upliftment, love, support, and you care about others. So when you care, you do take care of others. You make them grow and you make them heal. And that's what will heal the planet. One thing that's really important, though, among other things, is to remember that this planet and any other place in existence only exists so that life, individuals, groups can work out their karma, right? Which means working out our resistance in different ways. Not only humans, but also animals, plants, all levels of life. We're all on a karmic journey. And when we are on a karmic journey, the only way to grow is by learning. And what is it that we need to learn? The limitations of our own ways of thinking, our positions, our beliefs, our practices. Because we always start with the assumption that what I do is perfect. I am perfect. Everything I know is true. And we believe that. We are supposed to. But the whole experiment is then to try it out in real life and see what happens. And based on the feedback, based on seeing that if it works or not, if it assists you in your survival or not, you will adapt, you will change. So it is for every spiritual step, from the most primitive to the highest levels. It's always about starting with the assumption that I know how things work. And then life shows you that, no, you don't. So life will only always show you that what you do will have unforeseen consequences. Often what is perceived as kind of evil is someone just being ignorant about the unforeseen consequences. Right? They're doing their thing, and they're not aware of all the other stuff, and they really don't think that doesn't matter, And this is also when we look back in history, and we look at what humans did. A lot of it can seem completely evil, but they didn't know. Now we do. That's the karmic journey. we learn and we do better. And we find ourselves in a phase right now on this planet where a lot of things are happening, but it's important to remember that this is co-creational. When you incarnate on this planet, you do so as part of a project. Even, bacteria and, animals, birds, fish, whatever it is. This is a co-creational journey. So, it may sound strange from a horizontal perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, you can understand that all levels of life, they willingly incarnate into space where what is going to unfold is already part of it. So, when a species is going extinct, it's also that species making themselves go extinct. It's part of the journey, that spiritual journey of those souls going through that experience. Because it means that they are experiencing that something in themselves, a certain space, a collective space in themselves spiritually, is coming to an end. And sometimes that happens, in our manifestations. Just like, you can work in a company and then that goes bankrupt and you have to reinvent yourself. In your journey, that's significant because it's a space in you. So it's not like other life forms are innocent or not part of their own journey. It's just a different level of consciousness, and we are co-creational. So all life is part of this enormous experiment on this planet, kind of spearheaded by humans. But they're all part of it. And they're all here for the same reason, to work out resistance and to grow spiritually.
So we have an excellent question from YouTube from Rain Griever. If this whole way that we approach the environment is so much about fear-mongering and taking control, she wonders what's an alternative. What can she do when she is faced with something that she feels she has no control over? For example, she has a surgery in June and some health conditions that maybe are threatening her whole career. Mm-hmm. What do we do when we, because rainforest burning in the Amazon or, a health condition, I don't have control. What could we do differently?
Right. It's an excellent question. And understand that you never have control. Every time we try to control life, it's like trying to hold, the rays of the sun in our hand and put in our pockets. What happens when we try to control something is that we disconnect from life. We disconnect from flow, from spiritual truth. Because life is. It's one being, it's one consciousness, it's one is flow. In its absolute order. You have to think of it from starting as a spiritual reality. And then what manifests will always be the result of our resistance and what we need to work out. But as essence, it's absolute order, absolute truth in expression. Now, the purpose of what we call horizontal existence, which is everything manifested, the only purpose is to unfold you to your highest potential. The resistance, the blockages are not in life, they are in you. And life are trying to assist you solving them. That is the only purpose of everything around you. So, whenever we try to control, that's when things, fuck up. Because life is in harmony and we are not. We can be in harmony with ourselves and our own ego, but it means we live in a bubble. We're not connected to life. We're not connected to truth. So we will be out of tune. I've often referred to that as if you sit by yourself and tune your instrument without a tuning fork. Yeah, it will be in tune with itself, but when you try to play with others, you're completely out of tune. And it's that, right? So, we need to work out everything in ourselves that is out of tune. And we do that by interacting and life showing us different tuning forks. So we are able to tune. Control is just an ego story. I need to control this. No, the solution is always give up control. Trust life. Surrender to what is. Surrender to flow, to God, whatever you want to call it. Open your heart and understand that there is absolute order in the universe. And life wants to unfold you and heal you and lift you more than you. Because you are invested in your own stories, your own pain, your own suffering, and your own resistance. Life is not. So life is the gardener, and you're the flower. And the only purpose of the gardener is to try to bring you forward. So in all of these situations, we need to learn to practice surrender and to study how life works. Because the more we surrender to life, we understand that whatever happens only serves one purpose. And it's to give you the maximum growth and healing possible. We don't always understand it. Because life works in very long cycles, in very long intentions and movements. And as humans, we have very short attention span, and we're kind of limited by our needs. So we think that, oh, it has to happen that way because. And life sees no. If we go this way, then you will make other choices, you will change, you will adapt, and then this happens, then the unfoldment happens. We don't know this as people, but we can always see it in retrospect. Often the most wonderful things happened to us when we had no control, no intention, right? And we're caught off guard. Life knows more about your unfoldment and where you're going than you do. This is why such a big part of spiritual discipline and spiritual growth is to learn how to let go, how to let go of control, how to let go of fear, how to let go of my way. I need this, I need that, because it just gets in the way. There is already harmony in nature. There's already harmony in life. And the only way to truly heal is to become part of it. That is what all spiritual training truly is about. So whenever we're faced with these type of situations in life, it gives us the opportunity to practice and to really trust and to surrender and know that whatever happens when I let go, that is the path that will bring me the maximum growth and healing.
Adri in Costa Rica, she is wondering, she's understood it that the ecologists and scientists who are sounding the alarm for decades now about the environment, that they are just transmitting what climate science and other science is telling us and not being emotional or filling an emptiness. But she understands or hears you saying that really those same ecologists and scientists are actually just unhappy people filling up an existential void by sort of attacking what we're doing to the environment. She's just wondering, how does she make those two things work?
Information and how it's being used are two different things, right? Science, ideally, has very little bias, and it's just kind of information trying to figure out how things work. Most scientists are there, but it's not necessarily the scientists that are the alarmists and are selling and using the fear. Those are people who use the science. Two very different things. Humans care very little about science. If humans cared more about science, our civilization would be about 1,000 to 2,000 years more advanced than it is now. Humans don't care. They care about their stories. So humans will use science to create their stories and narratives, and then they try to sell it, right? So absolutely, scientists are not really part of this. Some are, but most are not. It's how science is being used. But it's also about understanding that this is a projection. From a spiritual point of view, this does not even exist. And the reason for that is that everything you experience will be the extension of your own consciousness, your own mind, and your own karma. And remember that when the purpose of this is for you to work out your karma, it means conflict. It means whatever is going on inside of you, all the conflicts, everything that you haven't figured out, everything that you resist will have to manifest. That's how we figure it out. So we have to injure ourselves to understand, oh, that wasn't smart. We have to injure like other people and nature to understand how we are blocking life, how we are not in harmony. So again, we need that tuning fork, and then we hear that we're out of tune. And it's painful to listen to. And when it's painful enough, we say, okay, then I may tune a little bit. So when that is the purpose of everything, it's not, in a way, it has no value in itself. The only value is, do you grow? Do you move to a higher level of consciousness? These are just basically the study tools. They're not the point in itself, and so it is for all levels of life. So if this planet get destroyed, well, that was absolutely necessary. Because we are all here to work out karma and to play with matter and to experiment what consequence does my resistance have in me, and we have to experience it in life. All life, everywhere, all dimensions, all planets, all life form go through the same process. And if this planet has to be destroyed, it's part of the karmic process and therefore absolutely necessary. And it's fine. There are infinite places to incarnate, infinite life forms. Whatever you need to experience, that will happen. You're not limited to this planet or by this planet. Wherever you go, you will always be confronted by your own level of consciousness and your next step. And that means that whatever is in you, that is the distance between where you stand now and your next step, will be the conflicts you create in the world, the conflicts that you experience. And when you have 8 billion people and billions and billions of life, individuals and life forms and collective consciousness doing the same thing, this is what we get. So the fantasy that we can get to a place of harmony and friendship and everybody being together and on the same page and taking care of each other, it will never happen. We are here to work out our inner conflicts, and that means conflicts with others. Just think of one thing that I think is really interesting. A core of, when it comes to people thinking of themselves as ethical beings, right? It's understanding right from wrong. If you're a Christian, understanding right from wrong. In politics, right from wrong. All ethics, like understanding right from wrong. As if that is universal. Right? And we can all say, I am, dedicated to doing the right thing and avoiding what's wrong. The challenge with that is we have different journeys. We have different value systems. We have different understandings, different culture, different everything, which means that our understanding of right and wrong is different. Every single person will have a different understanding of what's right and wrong. So, this is why we can never agree, because we can agree that right and wrong is very important. But then people do something that we think is wrong and they think it's right. Right? Because what happens is that when we observe someone and what they do, we will interpret that based on our own understanding, our own values, our own journey. So we interpret that based on what would that mean if I did it. So we go, oh, if I did that, I would have an evil intention. I would be a terrible person. Which means then you believe that that person is evil and has a terrible intention. Therefore, you must protect yourself or attack or correct. Well, that person may have a very different value system. So that he may think that he's doing good and watching you being evil, right? So it's all relative. And this is why, even when people work very hard at, understanding good, bad, right, and wrong, we get more conflict, not less. This is a planet of conflict. The whole ecosystem is one of conflict. The whole ecosystem, each level, they eat each other. Right? It's not based on friendship and harmony. Harmony on this planet is achieved by life forms eating and killing each other. That is the premise for harmony here. Right? So humans are part of this. So we need to let go of this complete fantasy that we can all be friends, because that would require that we have no karma. And we do. So we need to be kind of like free in our conflicts and experience them, because we all encounter conflicts. We think it's because of them. No, it's because of you. I was in harmony and balance, but then that person did this, and triggered me. Yeah, exactly, because you're in different positions. And this is how we encounter our own karma, our own resistance. We get to experiment and we get to refine ourselves. It's necessary. And in that process, we break things, we throw things. Humans love weapons. We weaponize everything to attack each other, because, the American philosophy is the more guns you have, right, the more harmony you get. People are safer. Right? So the more ability you have to kill someone, the more safe society gets. The only flaw is it doesn't. But it's because of humans. We are here to work out our conflicts, and there are plenty where that came from. And that will show itself in nature. Part of what's happening in nature right now, I've often talked about the binary mind. When we have enough fear and stress, our brains will become more black and white, right? When we have a lot of fear, it's life and death, friend, enemy. Everything becomes black and white. We are in this collective process on this planet, which means we're becoming more binary. That means we lose nuances. There are several manifestations of this that I find interesting. Number one, it's been documented that over the last decades, this planet is becoming more black and white. Our culture is losing color. There's more and more brands that use black and white. Design, more black and white. Cities, more black and white. We're losing color. We're becoming more colorless because it suits the binary mind. When we lose nuances, this is also what we're seeing in the ecosystem. The whole planetary consciousness is becoming binary. Also, it's needed to make people understand life or death. Do you want to kill this planet, or do you want to survive? The choices will become simpler. So when that is part of the premise of where the consciousness is, most of the life forms will disappear. Just like most colors are not in use in our culture anymore. We're becoming more and more colorless. And we can even see it when it comes to our seasons. This is also part of the whole changed environment. It's noticeable in many parts of the world that you're going directly from winter to summer. We're losing spring and fall. We're becoming more binary. So it's this whole collective mind. But it also means that when there is a situation of life and death, our minds and brains are supposed to become more binary, because we cannot deal with complexity and choices. It has to become simpler. So this is part of what's happening on this planet. But understand that all life forms are part of this. This is a co-creational project. And the souls are incarnating in every single life form, every single part of the ecosystem. And everybody incarnates to be part of this, to be challenged in their own karma, in their own way, in this specific way. There is nothing to be afraid of. And the way to deal with this is to confront our own conflicts. That's what this is for, not to save the planet. Because the planet does not need saving. Nothing needs saving. We need to heal ourselves, and that will be reflected then in our environment. Humans will not be able to change how they treat the planet until they've found a way to change how they treat themselves. It's that simple.
Tonight is a hot topic. We've got lots of questions. We're going to start with Sara in our studio audience here.
Yes, I was wondering the balance between, back to the surrender and control part, the balance between setting a goal and intention and interacting and being present in that movement, and at the same time, how can we then get better at surrendering and letting go in that process, in everyday life, in interactions? Have you any exercises or suggestions?
Well, I think that this is also something that you grow into. It's understanding that our own contribution to everything is very small. I often use the imagery of the surfer, and it's because it's the perfect image. When you surf, you're not controlling the waves. The only way to stand on the board is by surrendering completely. When you learn how to surf, you start from your head, and you're trying to learn how to surf, and you fall off immediately, because it means that you're trying to control. What you learn over time is you start with a wave, and you let that dictate, your body. So your brain is the last to know. You will have a lot of kind of micro adjustments happening directly, in your feet, in your body, because you're adjusting, you're in that kind of space. And it's learning to do that. So when you're a surf, you're extremely present, but you have no control. You're in a complete state of surrender, but you are doing your part. So it's that you could complete control without any control, right? Because you're in a way controlling yourself as an instrument, which means surrendering completely, but offering your structure and your expertise and how to control your body to be an extension of nature. And it's that. So we can be in an absolute intention, have very clear goals, but understand that whatever I do, it will happen in nature, and I have to listen. I also compare it to farming. It's the same thing, right? When you farm, you need to understand the seasons, you need to understand your climate, your soil, all of that, and also which plants will grow, where. You can plant, but you're not making the plants grow. That will always be nature, but you can use the different elements of nature to accelerate growth, for instance, but it's still nature. So you're working with nature. So you're still in that intention. You can get very good at it, but you also know that it's nature doing its work, and it's you being creative and offering your creativity. Now, it brings me just into the principle that I talk about a lot, is this obsession often that we have in more of the kind of alternative movement about things being natural. I say that, whenever you combine nature with human creativity, all of a sudden it's not natural. So when we are obsessed with things being natural, it means that in a way that we are hostile to the idea of human creativity. Everything we see in life that is not natural, it's something from nature having been, passed through human creativity, and then you get something, Humans are part of nature. Human creativity is part of nature. Even, your control, even whatever you do is part of nature experimenting, right? So what humans are going through, all the stupidity, everything we try to do, because remember that what humans are trying to learn, we want to survive excellently. The intention is not to destroy the planet. Right? Nobody wakes up and says, I want to see how I can destroy the planet today. People are not like that. We just try to create better lives and better societies, and we are short-sighted and ignorant. And we haven't figured out, and we can think we can do something, and we're not aware of consequences. And if we are aware of consequences, well, it will not affect me, so why should I bother, right? And it's that. The intention may be creative, may be excellent in itself, but it's flawed. So as a life form, nature is also experimenting. This planet is also experimenting with itself through humans as part of its consciousness. Because if you think of this planet as an organism, and the different life forms being part of the ecosystem and being part of the, ecology and biology of this being, it means humans are also part of that being, which means that whatever humans are doing is part of the consciousness of this being that is the planet. Right? So what we're doing is natural. It's part of this being as a planet, experimenting, getting to know itself. And humans have done many wonderful things. Absolutely wonderful things. Just look at what humans have accomplished just over the last 150 years. But we've come to a point where we need to shift gears because a lot of the things that used to be productive is now harmful. Not intentionally, but we just do what we do. It's also part of the planet figuring itself out as consciousness. So human consciousness is not disconnected or isolated from life itself. We are also part of it, which means everything we do is also part of nature. So the most artificial things that humans have come up with are still part of nature, right? But it's also for humans to have that freedom to experiment and therefore also figure out what is productive in nature. How can nature kind of stretch itself? How can we reach higher potentials? And over time, learn how to bring then healing and balance. Because humans are not good at that yet, but they will be because humans have a very strong desire to live. Human evolution is basically a master class in the willingness to survive and what they're willing to do to achieve exactly that. So when humans understand that, oh, right, my life is threatened, they just change like that. And this is why whatever happens on this planet, humans will figure it out. Because their willingness and desire to live is much stronger than their willingness and desire to destroy.
My amazing sound engineer colleague here, IKYA, has a question for you.
Okay, so I wonder, sorry, I'm just going to adjust the volume a little bit. So my question, I guess, is for those of us who have more of the focus to do good stuff with our fellow people on the planet and also for the planet, but not necessarily have the crisis focus. Are we still fake in thinking that we are doing good as we are living in the consequences of those who unconsciously are harming the planet and the people? And we chose to incarnate here in this world at this time. So I'm just thinking, am I and those like me, are we kind of fake in thinking that we are actually doing good because we get constantly mirrored that the world is going down? So yeah, I think you got my question.
Yes. I think it's an interesting question because the intention does not always match the full consequence. Now, humans have never really related to consequences. Only short-term consequences they can see, but long-term ones have not been part of it. And we may think that we're doing something really nice, and we're not. One thing, for instance, I've talked about is there are more slaves in the world now than any other time in human history, right? And you said, yeah. A lot of the products that you buy are made by slaves, or they're slaves, you know, slave work as kind of part of the raw materials or whatever it is. You know, and it's that. You may, you know, the typical thing is you want to buy something nice for your wife, you know, and then you buy a blood diamond, right? Or you buy her like a mink fur. Right now we understand that there might be questionable processes behind that. Or buy something made by, you know, child labor. Is it, but I just wanted to do something nice, and you can be filled with love, right? And just like, I love my wife and just want the best for her. And you block out the fact that these are made by, you know, slave children, whatever it is that you bought. And it's like that. You know, one thing that, for instance, also when it comes to the whole idea of slavery, you know, there were almost, like in the States, in the 1800s, there were almost 4,000 black slave owners. You know, it's like, how could that happen? Because people block out things with slaves where you had slaves. You know, we do these things because humans are not used to connecting to bigger consequences beyond their own needs. It's not natural for humans yet. So everybody has the tendency to just block out whatever information we don't like that disturbs our narrative. Because our narrative is always that we are good, we have good intentions, we only want what's best for ourselves and other people, right? And because that is the narrative, we begin cherry-picking information, right? We leave out whatever can, you know, disturb our narrative, and we include the parts that will reinforce it. And we all do that. It's part of human nature. What happens as we grow spiritually and our consciousness expands is that we see more, we observe more, we understand more, and then we have to relate to it. So, ignorance is bliss, very true. So as we expand, we see more consequences, we see cycles and how things unfold, and then we have to deal with it. Because then we know. Right? Then we can see it, and then we have to relate to it. And not relating to it when we actually know and when we understand, yeah, then it's a problem. When you don't, you're in a different level of consciousness, right? And your consciousness and your mind has kind of a limited kind of field of attention. So then when you don't relate to things outside that field, it doesn't belong to you. But as we expand spiritually, that field expands, and we have to relate to more complex consequences and then make our choices based on the full consequence. Not based on the immediate consequence, but also what are the complete implications and consequences of my choice? How does that affect everything? Right? And this is part of expanding. I've often said that expansion of consciousness is the result of how much you can deal with at once. And having to find balance in that becomes more and more complicated as you grow. And you need to therefore be clear in your own intention, but also how you live that intention. And again, be actively responsible for all consequences and implications. So that's part of the training, which means you have to take into consideration consequences that normal people don't. This is part of the spiritual training. And this is why also, as kind of a spiritual student, I expect that you are much kind of stricter in your ethical choices than normal people because you have more insight. And if you don't live your life based on those insights, and you don't take that responsibility, you don't have that insight, you don't have that consciousness.
All right, Caroline from YouTube, she asks what I think is a very important and sharp question. So when everything is right, or as it should be, the way it's unfolding and happening now, how do I know when to take action? Because, you know, I'm here, I'm part of this, she's part of this. Our actions could actually change the direction that things are going. How do we know when to take action?
When to take action? Anytime. Do whatever. Remember that the point here is not to save the planet. Where we should focus our attention, how can we maximize unfoldment, learning, growth, healing, and love? Trying to intervene in such a way that we block other beings from experiencing the full extent of their own resistance is not a good thing. This is why in a low consciousness, when we want to save the planet, that's fine. But as you grow, you understand that the only purpose of this is for everyone to work out their karma. So you say, yay, climate change. You want, in many ways, people and everyone to experience the full extent of their karma because you know that's where it lies. So do not try to save a projection. It's basically watching a movie, trying to save them. It's the consequence of consciousness and karma. So changing consciousness, healing, loving, uplifting. Because when you see everything around you as the consequence, not the source, the only way to change it is by lifting consciousness, and especially your own. The most important impact we can have on the world is lifting our own consciousness, working with our own karma, dealing with our own shit, purifying ourselves, becoming a more ethical being, vibrating love at all times, and demonstrating that consciousness in every choice, every moment, every interaction, and try to uplift people, not to achieve a certain result, but because expansion of consciousness, healing, and love is the purpose. So when we do that, the natural consequence is that matter will respond. But we cannot change matter first. It's basically trying to change an echo. You can't make the echo sing better. You have to talk to the singer. You have to start with the original voice. You can't change the echo. This is the echo of consciousness. So we have to aim in the right direction. So first we start with ourselves. The more we stretch, the more we purify, the more we're able to emanate love. That has an impact. But the moment you want a certain result, you're being violent. You're acting from ego. You're acting from stories. You're acting from fear and power. When you act from a position of life, you know that it's all okay. Because the only thing you care about is the unfoldment of what is in everyone.
That's fascinating because I remember that distinctly from university, that when I tried to force my environmentalism onto my friends and around me, it kind of drove them crazy. And when I finally shut up about it and just lived it, it turned out that they found that to be a lot more inspiring. So Bianca on YouTube, she has an interesting question. All of this environmental damage that we've been doing really since time immemorial as humans is also a source of ingenuity, innovation. You know, the way we poison the world around us promotes us to solve those different problems. So new possibilities open. But she asks, do you think, have we gotten to the point where we can continue to fix all of the damage that we have done and continue to do every day, or are we reaching some threshold where we won't be able to innovate our way out of this?
You know, it's important to understand that it's never over, it's never done, the train has never left the station, it's not, this is our only chance or else. That's still part of those stories that the end times are coming. Life never stops. There is not a beginning, there's not an end, there's only transformation. That's it. So there's never a situation where or else. People love that stuff, but it never happens. As I said, people have been predicting the end of time since the beginning of time. Right? And this is like so funny when you have all these religious groups claiming that now's the end of time, and they change the date all the time because it's not happening. It's not happening. So it will never be too late. It will just change. And life adapts. Right? At some point, this life form is over. That's fine. Then, you know, something better happens. It's always about unfoldment of souls, not life forms. So we need to realize that it's all fine. If the planet goes on, fine. If it goes under, that's just as fine. It doesn't matter at all. All that matters is the unfoldment of what is in everyone. And as I said, humans as a life form has shown to have an extraordinarily, strong desire to survive. Humans are not trying to destroy anything. They're just ignorant yet. And through this experience, they're gradually understanding, it takes time, that things have consequences. They still don't care, right? They can see it and they don't care yet. And there's nothing wrong about it. This is how far humans have come in their evolution. This is human nature. So it has to get a lot worse before humans believe that it affects them. Humans will only change when it affects them personally. And only then. So we're not there yet. But at the same time, yes, as consciousness on this planet is growing and more advanced souls keep incarnating, the joy of expressing themselves creatively, the joy of innovation, the joy of doing new things, that's what will lift the planet. Fear has never healed anyone. Control has never brought anyone love. It's playfulness, love, joy, upliftment, creativity, freedom, all of that. And many of the souls who are incarnated in this planet now, they are more in that state. They see the potential and the possibilities of everything, right? And when things become less stale, this civilization has kind of been on the same track for a long time and is starting to kind of break up a bit. A lot of people with creativity can then look at that, oh, you know, this just means I can express myself differently. I can do something with this because now it's not as kind of locked, right? So it opens up for creative expression, a lot of innovation. So in a way, the worse it gets, the more innovation we will get. So these things are happening at the same time. But we cannot save the world through taxes or restrictions or shame or aggression, complaining, all of that. It's through innovation and the joy of living, the joy of doing new stuff and coming together and figuring out new things. There's a lot of that going on. It's only in that direction this planet will change and humans will change. Seeing the opportunities and possibility. Remember that humans, in this very moment, have never had more opportunities than right now. Right? And we have to also remember that. And souls are incarnating, you know, like they're basically a traffic jam trying to get in here because from a spiritual perspective, this is the best thing ever on this planet. So souls who want to be creative and play with civilization, innovation, they are flooding in. Those are the ones that will kind of heal the planet, not because they want to heal the planet, but because they're having too much fun. So all of that other stuff will not help. Anything born from fear is destructive. So if you're trying to save the planet from fear, that energy will kill everything.
Well, thank you, IKYA. You've just undermined my entire bachelor's degree at university, where I studied how to tax everyone into saving the world. So, but I have a distinct honor of being able to share with you really the whole purpose of IKYA Live. Two of our students tonight on YouTube have shared insights they've had as we've been talking tonight. Rain Griever was the first question we had earlier, and she shares with us that she's just understood that she's still fairly young in her spiritual journey, and that she thought for a long time that she's been acting from a place of love and understanding, but has just realized tonight that she's really more acting from a place of fear, which is just, that's a huge insight. And Adri in Costa Rica also shares that she got it. The point is not to save the planet. The point is to work out our karma and continue unfolding in love and growth and healing, and changing consciousness is the most important. And I mean, wow. And it really, this is why we're doing this, you know, is to really, you know, because everything happening around us, we get so caught up in the details of it. And the purpose of IKYA Live is to, you know, try to take a higher perspective and to see things from there.
I think that this is so important. You know, one thing I think, looking at this planet as a playground for all levels of life, you know, I often also talk about baking and cooking and stuff, because that's also one thing I love to do. But it's like, when you think of, if you want to teach kids how to cook or to bake, you have to be prepared for most of it ending up on the floor, right? There will be as much on the floor, on the counter, that you will, you know, as you will find in the bowl. And you're lucky if any of it ends up in the oven, right? And that's how it is. Learning is messy. And if we say, we got to save the kitchen, you know, it has to be clean and spotless, because we need harmony, we need order here. Right? Try, you know, will a child really express, you know, herself in that environment, and you try to learn and have fun? It will become a process of fear. Am I doing it right? And we never learn when we're trying to do it right. We learn when we try to express ourselves through whatever it is we're doing. When we get to a sense of freedom and self-expression, when it's fun. Fearlessness is how we heal. Fearlessness is how we learn. We can never heal, we can never open up, we can never achieve greatness from fear. We restrict ourselves, right? What you want to see in a child is their enjoyment of baking, right? And it's messy, but often the messier it is, and you just want them to be happy, because, you know, that confidence, that is what will bring them forward. That is how they heal. That is how they get that strength to try things in life and to not be afraid, right? So you don't care about the mess. Remember that on this planet is connected not only, you know, to itself, the multiple dimensions. This is a planet that's being overseen by other planets, other beings, other cultures that have invested so much in this life form and the development of humans and the civilization. There are also many spiritual beings present, including myself, and there are many levels and dimensions looking at this planet and taking part in it as a co-creational project. Nothing is isolated, nothing is disconnected, everything happens in greater context. So there are always adults present, right? And there are always adults cleaning up the mess after the kids or trying to learn how to bake. So what we want to install in everyone is that confidence. Because if you become afraid of trying, you don't innovate. You may try to do it right, but then you go into that religious strictness. And before you know it, you're Amish. Right? That's what happens. Religion has blocked this civilization. As I said, this is also, as one knows, this is an established fact that without the Western religions, this civilization would have been, 1,000 or 2,000 years ahead of where it is right now. Because you get afraid of doing something wrong. And when you look at these religions, always do the right thing or else. It blocks everything. There is always spiritual adults present. Don't be afraid to create a mess in your life or even on this planet, but try to learn. Try to move into the joy of learning, the joy of giving, the joy of nurturing each other and inspiring each other. It's through inspiration and playfulness and love and wanting to uplift, wanting to, create better lives for everyone that we will succeed. Humans will have to grow out of that self-centeredness also as a life form that, we want what's best for us. But we need to include the other life forms as well. Humans will get there. As the humans will learn to be custodians and be the adults in the room for the whole planet. The culture is getting there because that is how the planet will heal. It will happen. But right now, it's a lot of mess. But it's fine. It's developing that confidence, developing, a love and enjoyment. Remember that human history has been so full of suffering, right? It's been suffering, it's been judgment, it's been conflict, it's been war. And now humans are learning that I can be creative, I can express myself. That is historically new. Talking about personal expression, it's never been a thing. It's historically new. And we need to do that and learn to be in our expression, but also as an extension of life and in harmony with nature. We will get there. Do you have a last question?
We actually do have a last question, and it's more to navigating from here. Rain asked, how could we move toward less of that, as you identified, cherry picking of information and science and all of that to tailor to our narratives, and that how could we focus more on taking in the whole scope of information available and making more growth and love-oriented choices and contributions from there?
Yes. Now, what I often talk about when it comes to this is we have to move beyond survival. This is very difficult for the human brain because the body and your genetics, everything is just geared for you to survive and being willing to do absolutely anything, including killing others, to survive. Every human being, like almost everyone, are willing to kill. It's just a matter of situation. Humans are willing to do anything. So, that kind of self-centeredness, we have to go beyond it. And it's learning that we're not that interesting, as I often say. It's learning to express ourselves and, connect with ourselves, but then we have to move on. The interesting thing about the human genetics and the human brain is that when you don't understand yourself, when you have all this kind of suffering inside of you, it's basically you listening to your own kind of strings being out of tune. And it's painful to listen to. And you just try to figure out, how can I figure this out? Right? How can I kind of heal and get my needs met or whatever? First, we search out in the world and we try to compensate and we self-medicate and want a career, want this or that. And at some point we learn it's not working. And we have to go within, right? This does not necessarily happen in the same lifetime, right? But over time, we understand that the outer world is not it. We have to go within, and then we have to connect with ourselves. We have to do the work, and we have to I have to change. I have to change my positions. Right, what's happening outside me is just life showing me this is not working. I'm not working. And I can actually learn to be in harmony. And then we start that process. And when we then get a sense of connecting with ourselves and, oh, right, okay, I'm on track with this now. Then we have to move past that, because then we're not in a state of that pain and suffering. So, the only way to connect with the world is to connect with yourself. This is why, when people are not into kind of personal growth work or spirituality, they can look at it and say, that's very self-centered, just like egomaniacs, all of you. And they self-medicate, right? And they do things in the world just because they're trying to numb their own pain, and they don't get it. The way to move out is to move in. So we have to do the work inside. We have to heal whatever is going on inside of us. We have to connect. We have to expand, because it's the only way your brain and your ego will allow you to focus on something that is not you. So we have to do the work. So the deeper you go inwardly, the more you move outwardly. So basically think that the journey inside decides how much you will expand. So the more closer you move to your center, the more you will expand at the same time. And the further you are from your center, the smaller your consciousness will be. There is absolutely no other way to do it. So being a responsible spiritual student means to go inside, do the work, heal yourself, release your past, release your future as well, release your belief systems, release all your attachments. It's all of that. It takes time. And you don't have to finish. But as I say, the more you do, the more you're able to expand, because your ego simply represents everything that you've not balanced yet. When you've balanced something, the ego, it will go more quiet. And then you have increased capacity to focus on the world. So it's basically just that. There is no other way to do it. So anyone who's done growth work for a long time will tell you this. You have to do the work for real. And then that naturally translates into you having attention to others. Because remember that when you are in all sorts of pain, in your emotions, in your past, in your mind, your subconscious, all of that, even your genes, it will occupy your entire mind. You have this enormous, orchestra or choir of noise and voices, and you have hardly anything left to focus on something that is not connected to your own existence and your existential pain. You have to work that out first, because then you increase your capacity. And that is the expansion. That means that you can have awareness on the world around you. Then you have a natural empathy. Because normally humans, when they focus on empathy, it's basically yet another way to self-medicate. I do this for you so you can tell me how wonderful I am. I want to prove that, I'm worthy, or that I'm good. It's that. But when you heal yourself, it's just not, you don't want anything. You're giving back. Because that consciousness that naturally expands is already part of nature, is already in harmony. So in that part of you, you will start behaving as nature, in harmony with nature, not because you're trying, but because that's who you are in that part of you. It's your noise that gets in the way. And that also means, as I said, when you're full of noise, your consciousness is limited, and you have no idea about the consequences and the implications of your own karma and your own resistance and how that affects life around you. Because there's too much noise. So we all have to do the work first. And it starts by daily spiritual practices. Meditate, Go to therapies, do things that will bring you in a healing, growing direction until you start sorting yourself out. And you will immediately, after a while, start feeling that, oh, I have now kind of attention that is not limited by my own stuff. and I start sensing the world around me. I'm starting to sense other people. And I can actually sense their needs and what they need in their journey. It's not connected to me at all. And it's natural for me to try to nurture that. And I don't want anything back. And that then starts to grow. So this is how we heal the planet. We have to heal ourselves. The planet is just a mirror. And understand all life forms are part of this. All life forms are in the same type of narrative. But since the human life form is on the top of the food chain and therefore is what we call a governing point of the life form consciousness on this planet, what the humans go through as a collective consciousness will have an impact. So the work we do in ourselves, that's where it starts. You cannot have a healing impact on the world for real when your own stuff is getting in the way. Because then you're acting out of your own beliefs, your own value systems, to try to compensate for your own pain, to try to have control, to try to sell, I know what's right, I want to be in control. It comes from pain. You need to release the consciousness that already is in harmony with life and let that take over. So, as always, it's us. And the more we do, the more we release, the more that natural love comes, and the natural understanding and the patience. And you start behaving like a spiritual adult, which means you look at the kids and say, yeah, you know, they have to fall off the bike to learn how to bike. They need to make a mess in the kitchen. They have to figure things out. And you will start behaving like a stable presence, a clear mirror. But you never try to deprive anyone of what they need to go through to learn. You know that every conflict is precious. Every problem, every kind of negative consequence is gold because it's how we learn. It's how you learn too. So you will be that responsible adult. And you will never block anyone from learning. You just nurture the process. And you love everyone and everything no matter what happens. Because understand, when something happens, it's absolutely necessary. Because that's the expression of the karma present. But you can be present as a higher consciousness, vibrating as a tuning fork. So others may hear it. And in the process of experiencing their own disharmony, and they get it, they will start looking for a tuning fork. And then your consciousness and energy will be present. This is how we uplift each other. This is how spiritual consciousness spreads. You can't fake it. It's not based on spreading beliefs. It's what you vibrate as a spiritual being. And if that is in harmony or not. So do the work. Become a tuning fork. And let others take part in it. And that's how we do it.
Wow, what an exchange tonight. It's really been an honor. Thank you, IKYA, so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here in the studio audience and on YouTube. This has been IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective. And if you want to be more a part of this, follow us on YouTube, subscribe, IKYA.official. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, IKYA Official. Also, if you want more news about everything that's going on here at the IKYA Center and more about the teachings, go to IKYA.org and do sign up for our newsletter. We have beautiful emails that come out regularly. And finally, if you want to elevate your spiritual study more than you've ever done in your life An opportunity, a beautiful opportunity is coming in June. Our next phase of IKYA-aligned crystal healing, the deepest spiritual study on the planet, really, truly, begins on the 21st of June. Learn more about it at IKYA.org as well. So from all of us here at IKYA Center, thank you so much for joining us at IKYA Live tonight, and we'll be back again next Monday at 7 o'clock. Thank you.